Hey everyone, I am Andrew Steyer. Today we're going to be discussing Harry Potter, and I'm here with my guest, Nicholas Kusnir.
Hello to the invisible audience out there right now.
We have some video here,
Okay. Well, I mean invisible in terms of our
if you're
live
listening.
conversation.
Yeah.
They'll be there later.
Oh, I see. They're invisible to us. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
How's your day been, Nicholas?
So far so good. I mean it's raining here, so and we just got a new bed set and everything, so I can turn the camera. We have our old mattress
Who's we?
and box spring. My boyfriend and I live together.
Oh,
And
nice.
mattress and box spring are just kind of on the floor over here in the guest bedroom. And even like to get in through the doorway, I had to like kind of like shimmy against the wall. But I guess you're not allowed to throw out mattresses anymore. Or you have to like pay to take it to a dump or something. You can't just put them in the dumpster, which maybe that's always been a thing. I'm not really sure.
I did
But
not know that at all.
yeah, I assumed you could just put them in a dumpster. And honestly, like I don't know what would happen if we did just put it in a dumpster, but I guess I don't want to break that rule if we're not supposed to. So until we have time to go to the dump, or find someone who just wants them, they're just going to be in our guest bedroom taking up space.
Well, if you're listening to the podcast and what state are you in again?
I'm in California,
Oh,
but
yeah,
more
you are.
specifically in San Diego.
If you're in San Diego and you want a mattress, hit up
Yeah,
Nicholas.
let me know. Let me know. First, I'm going to put it on Facebook Marketplace or offer up and see if anyone bites to pay. I don't know if anyone would, especially like the box spring is all torn up from cats. But the mattress, I'm hoping I can sell before I have to offer to give away for free.
Okay. Good luck. Yeah, on my
Yeah,
end, it
thanks.
is Armageddon out right now. It doesn't usually rain in LA, but it just is pouring rain. I walked back from the coffee shop and there's just like I ran through so many puddles. I'm currently wet right now.
Ooh,
Uh,
fun.
yeah, weather normally is not the most interesting conversation, but when it's like this, it's like no, it's a pretty important part of my day right now.
Especially for Californians, we're like, oh my God, it got
Yeah,
below 75 and it's raining. What's going on?
yeah, I love Seattle for the. Where was this when the fires were happening? Come on.
I know, but oh well.
Um, okay, so I have to say, Nicholas is a testament to how much I wanted you on the podcast that I agreed to do Harry Potter.
Woo! Are you not a Harry Potter fan at
No, I
all,
am a
or
Harry Potter fan. I'm not a fan of calling Dumbledore gay. I'm not a fan of calling Harry Potter gay representation. This is so silly.
I
But
given J.K. Rowling's like I want to say recent stance, but I feel like she's been pretty adamant about like her view on trans people for 7, 8 years now. I don't know. COVID
yeah,
has
it
thrown
feels like
off my
forever.
timeline, but it
Yeah.
seems like it's been a long time. Prior to that, I would have definitely been like, "Oh my God, wow! Like Harry Potter is such like has such a queer culture, and like a lot of fans are very gay." Ever since then, I don't think I would call it like a queer representation or anything because I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
She's
there's certainly a lot to talk about. To be fair, so that's why I actually am excited to talk about this. It's funny because like the longer I've done this podcast, and any review podcast has this issue where your reviews tend to skew positive because you like it's not fun to like voice negative opinions about things, right? But at the end of the day, like
yeah,
I do want to be able to kind of not just highlight good queer representation, but talk about what we don't like. And this is one of the times where I feel very safe in discussing how much I do not
yeah,
approve of the decision to, in the end game, decide that Dumbledore was gay. It's very silly. But also, I think you bring up a really good point, and I'm interested to hear more on your thoughts. Of you, you said like okay before J.K. Rowling came out as a turf, you think that Harry Potter felt kind of like it
I
belonged to the
wouldn't
queers in
say
some way?
not even belonged to, and like there's not really other than Dumbledore like at this point queer characters or anything, but I do feel that a lot of people in the queer community identified with the stories, maybe not in like a queer aspect that they identified, but there was definitely like a very big gay fan base of Harry Potter. It was kind of like this fantasy escape type of thing. And
Mm.
I mean, the books, the first book came out in England when I was 4. It was published in America when I was, I think, 5, like a year later. And I mean, I don't know what it was, but I do think a lot of people who were big fans as children grew up and were like, oh, turns out like I'm gay. And for some reason, there was like some appeal to it, kind of like a lot of gays like pop stars and stuff. It's not that they're are always necessarily like pandering to that community. Now they definitely are, but there's just something about that and like pop culture and Harry Potter that I think gays kind of like gravitated towards.
Yeah. It's funny because I never really thought of that. I wonder how many straight guys grew up being big fans of Harry Potter because I feel like it had pretty universal appeal. But one thing I will say, like Harry Potter's definitely nerdy, right, to its own
Yeah.
degree. And what I've always thought found very cool about the nerd community and gaming community, etc., is it is so accepting to the outcasts, right? And as gay
Yeah. I mean,
people,
the nerds are like the outcasts. So
yeah, exactly. And so to have an environment like that where all are welcome, which is its own with the gaming community specifically, we can get into like Gamergate and how women fit into that
yeah, yeah.
community. But at least as a guy, like, and I think as a girl too. I mean, I really do feel like that community is full. The nerd community in general, right? It's full of the weirdos, and so it's cool to have a space where whether you're gay or straight or whatever, you can fit into that. And so I do see how that could relate to Harry Potter for sure. I also just think it's so interesting. As how old are you?
31.
Yeah, we're basically the same age. I turned
I was
33
I
February 25th.
have to like think about it. I'm like, wait, how old am I
That's how you
now?
know you're getting old.
I know. And well, there was actually one of my friends, this was a while ago back. He turned 21 and he was living in Ireland at the time and he was over here. And when he turned 21, I'm like, sweet, like now we can go out drinking. And he's like, what? And I was like, you're 21 now. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I had to be like, dude, take your ID out. You just turned 21. And he's like, oh, I didn't even realize that because his justification was like, oh, like back in Europe, there's not really that marker. Like once you're 18, maybe even 16, and you're already allowed to drink, it's kind of like, okay, like now I'm not really keeping track anymore. And he was like, oh, I didn't realize that. I thought I was 20. And I'm like, no, you're 21.
That's wild. It's like, okay, I'm
So
old enough to drink, and now age has no
that
bearing.
doesn't matter. I mean, like, I get it. There were more significant markers when we were younger, like what 18 now you can like I think just buy a lottery ticket and I
And
don't think you
there's
can
plenty
smoke till
of
you're
there's plenty
21.
of celebrities that don't pay attention to age at all.
Yeah, definitely. It's not real. But anyway, sorry, I cut you off. Yeah, we're same age group ish.
How dare you cut me off? This
I
is
know,
no.
I know, I know.
No, but it's weird as millennials, right? I think we all kind of have this really weird relationship with Harry Potter because it's weird to grow up with something. I mean, people were huge fans. I was a big fan, right?
I'm currently a huge fan.
Oh
I
yeah.
have a couple Harry Potter tattoos.
Wait.
So
Whoa, show me.
well, they're on my feet, so I'm not gonna like do the whole song and dance to show them off on camera. But I have
Ah,
on one on the side of my foot, it's a broomstick. Because I always thought if you get a tattoo, I was like, it's permanent. I'd have to have the idea in my head for a year, 2 years before like having something permanent on my skin, blah blah blah. And then I was backpacking and I was in Poland and someone was practicing, do you know stick and poke tattoos?
oh my
Where
God, yeah,
it's like the needle dipped in ink, and then just by hand they're kind of doing it instead of a
yeah.
tattoo gun. And some guy in Poland was practicing, and he's like, "Oh, can I give you a tattoo? I'm practicing." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm backpacking. I have no money. My budget is like €10 a day right now. Like I'm trying not to spend anything." I was super, super broke, and I mean, I'm still broke, but just finding myself, all that fun stuff, which I guess I'm still finding myself now too. But anyway, point is, he was like, "Do you want a free tattoo?" And I was like, "Yeah." Well, I'm traveling and I like Harry Potter and wizards travel on broomsticks. Can you tattoo a broomstick on the side of my foot? So he tattooed a broomstick on me. And it was literally, we just went on Google Images and typed in like broomstick sketch and he just copied one of those. But every time people see it, they're like, wait, I mean, first, they don't really know what it is. is because you can't tell it's a broom. But once I say it, or if they do know it's a broom, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely the Firebolt, right?" Or, "Oh my God, that's totally the Nimbus 2000." And I just have to be like, "I actually don't know. Like, it might be none of those. We just typed in on Google Images broomstick sketch, and I picked one."
Man,
So
there's
that was
so
the
much to
first.
comment on here. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah, go
so
for it.
funny you went from first of all, you're gatekeeping your feet from me. I cannot
I know, I know.
believe
Well, what do you
that
want me to do? Like, get up on the desk and
our viewers want free feet pics, Nicholas.
they
Show me your
definitely do.
feet.
They do. I know. They'll have to subscribe for that when I make my future OnlyFeed account.
Oh, only feet. That's so gross. Uh, I also think it's so funny that people go from like, oh, I can't even tell that's a broom, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's a Nimbus 2000. It's like you couldn't even tell it was a
Yeah, you
broom.
didn't even know a second ago, and now they know what different types of brooms there are. But
And
the I was gonna say the oh, sorry, sorry.
just like going from like, oh, I don't want to get a tattoo, it's too much, to like, screw it, stick and poke.
Yeah.
But that
Well,
is
then
cute.
the second one, so I don't know if tattoo parlors still do it, but on Friday the 13th, they used to do these deals, or they would do like a tiny flash tattoo type thing. And it was for $13. So, and then, you pay a tip, so it'd be $20.
Hmm.
But I went somewhere in college, there was a tattoo parlor like a mile, 2 miles from our school campus or whatever. So a group of friends and I walked there. And I wanted to get a little tattoo of a bottle of a potion. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a Harry Potter potion. And it's like Felix Felicius or Felicius or
Oh
something. It's the good
yeah.
luck one.
Oh, I
And I
love
was
that
just
one. Yeah.
thinking, like, oh, get that tattooed for good luck. How people get like four-leaf clover or a horseshoe, whatever.
Wait, that's so
But when
cute.
well, I didn't get it. But when I asked the tattoo artist, that they were like, "Oh, I can't do that, or that's not going to be $20. There's way too much detail in that. That's going to be at least $100." And I'm like, "No, I came here for a $20 tattoo." And he's like, "Well, you can pick one from this list of like pre-made ones." And he handed me a sheet, and it was like Bart Simpson or like a donut or a cross or a heart and whatever. And I was like, "Well, I don't want any of these." So I asked if I could get a lightning bolt and glasses, and he was like, "Yeah, for $100." I was like, "Wait, what? Like, this is less ink than most of the tattoos on this sheet." And then I think he was definitely annoyed and was just like, "Okay, fine, I'll give it to you." And it took less than 10 seconds. I mean, glasses are literally just two circles and a little line and then a little lightning bolt. Um, and I was like, "Cool. I mean, that's not really the tattoo that I wanted and went here for, but oh well." But I don't regret either of them. So my whole thinking I needed to wait years before I got something permanent, otherwise I'd regret it. Like, I was totally wrong on that because both of these were kind of like split decisions, and it's been 10 years plus. So
That's really
yeah.
interesting. As someone who doesn't have tattoos myself, in many parts for that same reasoning, I just haven't found something that I feel as committed enough
Yeah.
to do. It's cool to hear your story of that. Now let me ask you this, because I think you're the perfect example of this, right? You had people who were super fans and still are, and then it must be so heartbreaking to then see J.K. Rowling be so openly, and I would say even aggressively. It's one thing to have
Well, yeah,
different
she's
political
very
opinions.
adamant, and she's not even like it's such like why share her opinion? I really don't get it. She This doesn't affect her in any way, yet she's so vocal about it and like takes such a huge stance on trans rights or lack of trans rights. And it's so strange to me and to many people that she's like inserted herself in this conversation for no reason at all. And I'm not saying it would be okay if she had these thoughts and like kept them to herself. I'd still, if I knew that, I'd be like, well, that's kind of weird. Like maybe she's just uneducated. But at this point, it's like, no, she's willfully uneducated, like just not even like an ignorance type thing. Like she has intentionally taken a stance and like she has to have done research on it and still have her opinion. And she's so adamant that she just does not believe in trans people. And it's such a strange, like, I don't know, it's such a strange stance for her to take and be so vocal about because, like, what's the point? You know?
Yeah, and all of us as millennials are this thing we grew up with that was beloved is now attached to something that, for many of
Yeah.
us, is so opposed to our own views. and it's like the prime example of separate the art from the artist. If you really don't
Yeah,
want to seem like you're endorsing J.K. Rowling, but I mean, how do you feel as someone who literally
it's
has
again
permanent ink
separating the
on your
art from the
body?
artist. Well, still a huge Harry Potter fan. I'm not gonna. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a Harry Potter fan. And I do
Mhm.
know a lot of people who grew up were huge Harry Potter fans their whole life, favorite book, merch, tattoos, theme parks, whatever. And then when all the stuff started with J.K. Rowling, they'd be like, the books are so childish. She can't even write. She sucks. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, well, come on. You went like I can see growing up and looking back at them and being like, oh, they're children's books or something. Like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But when people are like, she's a terrible writer, she sucks, she's not even talented, she can't do anything, I'm kind of like, well, that I don't think that's true.
You're like, unfortunately, she
And
is talented.
yeah, I still think she's extremely talented. I don't agree with her trans opinions, and she's like the literal definition of a TERF.
Mhm.
Other than her thoughts on trans people, like she's a huge activist for a lot of things. She donates a ton of her money. I think at one point, like she was richer than the Queen of England or something, but donated so much to orphans and things like that. Like she's always been like a huge advocate for human rights. And this isn't me like defending her, saying she's amazing or that all her thoughts are true, but it's just this one issue that she's very like I think wrong about and very vocal about that I'm like, ooh, that's kind of weird. But I still think obviously she's a good writer. Like she wouldn't have done all this had she not been a good writer. And I have had people when I like, yeah, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. That are like, wow, so you hate trans people. That means like this, you're transphobic. And I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm not saying I love J.K. Rowling. I used to, but I definitely don't anymore. But I do love Harry Potter. And then to take it like a little step further, I pulled up photos, paintings that Hitler did on my phone, and to the same person who was saying I was super transphobic without giving context, I was just like, "Hey, what do you think of these art pieces?" And
Oh
he's
my
like, "They're good," and
God,
I'm like, "Oh, well, that
Nicholas!
means that you hate Jewish people and you're a Nazi because you just said you like that painting, and Adolf Hitler actually made that painting." And I was like, "Do you see how ridiculous that is?" Like that's not the same comparison. You can say someone's talented with a certain type of art, but not agree with their viewpoints on things and trying to correlate the two. Like, it's stupid. And then that was
Nicholas,
that.
baiting
So,
people with Hitler's art is so funny.
I mean, if when they said that I was like transphobic because I like Harry Potter, I just got super defensive because I'm like, well, I'm not, and wanted to prove a point and be like, this is how stupid it is to accuse me of that. Like, so now I'm going to set you up in a situation where it's the same thing.
I've never seen Adolf's art.
So
Is it that great?
I I don't think so, but I mean, I
Are you gonna get it
art is
tattooed on your feet?
beautiful. No, 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 no. But art is so subjective anyway. Like, there's definitely. I mean, you've been to museums, I'm assuming, and there's stuff you've seen that you're like, why? Like, why was this person a famous artist? Like, it's a green streak or something.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't
but
even know you could find his art. That's so funny. Nicholas, I'm obsessed
yeah,
with that.
I know. Good times, good times.
All right, so we're gonna do things a little differently this episode, where instead of going through the actual media piece by piece, I think the more interesting thing is going to be to kind of go through Harry Potter, its legacy, and information about J.K. Rowling and about Dumbledore in general. And so that's what we're going to do during today's break. So let's read some articles.
Woo!
Bye. And we're back.
Woohoo!
Hey. Wow. Okay. So I think we found some interesting things. Uh, so first of all, I what's interesting is like this whole Harry or Dumbledore being gay thing. I feel like I only ever like really heard of it secondhand, so I didn't really know much of the story. So I wanted to read this ABC News article from 2009. It was that long ago. I think that's before gay marriage was legalized in the states, which is interesting.
Oh
Um,
wow.
uh, Rowling lets Dumbledore out of the closet. Well, it's official. Albus Dumbledore, a hero of the phenomenally popular Harry Potter series and headmaster of the wizarding school Hogwarts, is gay. That's right, Harry's mentor and father figure would prefer a nice wizard to a hot witch any day. In a surprising new Potter twist, author
Where
J.K.
was this
Rowling,
article published?
ABC News.
That's so funny.
In a surprising new Potter twist, author J.K. Rowling outed Dumbledore. You're right. The language in this article is interesting. At New
Mainly
York's
the what handsome wizard or sexy wizard to a hot witch or whatever.
prefer
Just
a
seems
nice
funny.
wizard to a hot witch any day.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so after reading an excerpt from the seventh installment of her series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, one young fan asked if Dumbledore had ever loved anyone. Dumbledore is gay, actually, replied Rowling. This was during a question and answer session Friday night. Um, she was initially met with a surprised silence, but ultimately the audience erupted in cheers for several minutes, prompting Rowling to add, I would have told you earlier if I knew it would make you so happy. Rowling went on to explain that Dumbledore fell for Gellert Grindelwald, his childhood friend with similarly brilliant wizarding skills, who eventually went over to the dark side and became the predecessor to the infamous villain Voldemort. That love, explaining Rowling, was Dumbledore's great tragedy. Um, this is interesting. In fact, recently I was in a script read through for the sixth film, and they had Dumbledore saying a line to Harry early in the script saying, I knew a girl once whose hair. The crowd laughed. I had to write a little note in the margin and slide it along to the scriptwriter. Dumbledore is gay, she said. So it's really interesting. And then apparently one person wrote, "This is a victory for homosexuality the world over." One wrote, "Dumbledore is iconic, and I can't wait for all those little children to hear about this. I'm so insanely proud of Rowling for doing this."
Yeah.
Uh, that is obviously not the criticism that endured, or the opinion that
No,
endured,
no,
as I
no.
think it's widely seen as a faux pas, and the reason I think it garnered so much um, disgruntlement. Anger isn't quite the right word. It was more like um, friction. Um, it's just that it feels like almost stolen valor. Like trying to claim representation after you've already written the book, and if you'd wanted the representation, you should have put it in there, right?
I mean, and I probably knew this was a Q and a type thing, but in my head, like when I was thinking about how this was going to go, I was almost imagining her back then, like her team doing a press release or something, being like, we need to let them know, like, send it out now that Dumbledore's gay. And hearing that it just happened, like with the fan asking a question and I wouldn't say slipped, but it doesn't seem as intentional as I was kind of imagining. It was like oh, was this like a PR move where they're like, hey, like let's get this out there and kind of get that diversity thing going. This does seem like it was more natural, and then learning about the script read is like, okay, so maybe this was kind of intentional from the get go.
Yeah, I mean, some context that's important to consider here is there's a long history, given the United States is not supportive of gay rights, at least certainly wasn't back then, of
Yeah.
of characters who were gay, that it seems like the writers probably wrote the character to be gay, and you just kind of had to know that, like they weren't going to explicitly say it. So there is precedent for that kind of thing happening, where the writer thought of the character as gay, but didn't explicitly say it for one reason or another. I do think that in this sort of reveal, if it was to be authentic, I would expect some sort of explanation of. I wanted to put in the story, but I was afraid of the repercussions, etc. So to kind of just tritely say like, "Oh, I didn't even realize you wanted to know," it's like, girl.
Yeah, I do think that's silly. Like you said that. Oh, I didn't. If I knew it would make people happy, I would have said it. Like, come on, you should have. But also, when I think about it, like they don't talk about the professors' like sex lives, like nor should they. It'd be kind of weird for them to be discussing that with their students,
But
and they
it's
are all told from Harry's point of view. So I do see why it would not have been relevant. Like I can easily argue both sides. I can say yes, like the representation would have been great and it should have been more prevalent in the stories. But I'm also like, well, it doesn't really matter. Like it's kind of like how people can argue should people come out anymore, and it's like, yeah, coming out's like this amazing thing, and it's also like, no, that's what's wrong with society is you shouldn't have to come out, you should just be able to like live freely, and it's never an announcement. So why should it have been this big announcement? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but do you? Because I could also easily see that she just made this up on the spot, and then just
That's
like
yeah.
made up a
Well,
story to double down on it.
that's why I wonder if there's a way to prove about the script writing thing, or yeah, if she was just like, he's gay. No, it's all no, really. You can. There was no one knew except one time I was reading the script and even thought, like, okay, yeah, is that true or was that in the moment? Like,
That would be interesting to verify. Yeah, we'll have to try and track that
yeah,
down. Rainbow Room's going to become elite journalism here, investigative
yeah.
journalism.
Someone put it on TikTok and have someone be like, actually, yeah, my uncle was on set that day.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, it also is I like this explanation of like, oh, this informed so much of Dumbledore's history. Better than the explanation I think I had heard secondhand, which someone said like, "Oh, she said that's why Dumbledore was so interested in Harry." Which, like, if that's true,
I
that's
know.
really, really creepy, and I wouldn't like that at all.
Yeah, I don't think that it's that. But did you read all the books, or are you more of a
Hmm.
movie fan? Or okay, so I don't know when the last time you read them was, or how well you remember them or not. But he, with knowing like that he's gay, reading the parts about Dumbledore and Grindelwald, I do think there's like a, oh yeah, they were kind of like obsessed with each other. Dumbledore was very obsessed with this guy, like kind of like a crush. This does seem like a crush. But that could also be said about like so many things if they were to, I'm not saying that this is it, but if they were to randomly be like, oh, turns out Ron was gay, you could read them and be like, oh, I can kind of see that the way he and Harry are such good friends. Like, no, that's not true or anything. But if someone were to say that, you could easily be like, yeah, okay, I can see how like that does explain how close they are, like things like that. But it does seem like there could have been romance between Dumbledore and Grindelwald.
Sure. I
But it
I
doesn't. Yeah,
I think that's a really, really good point, and it has been a while since I've read that. I always do. I get a little bit. I think we should be cautious, and this isn't necessarily like for this story, but I think more like the whole like, oh, Abraham Lincoln was gay, and like, yes, maybe some of the signs are more on the nose, but I do think platonic male love is something that's not really accepted in today's society, and it's something that should be. And I
yeah,
think one of the like people are just very quick to label it as gay, which I think is supposed to, they do it in the effort of fighting homophobia and being like, we should be able to acknowledge that these people were gay. But in that effort, I think they sometimes can damage the um, the fact that there is platonic male love and that's something that should be encouraged and not discouraged, and people might be more afraid to express love for their homies if they're
yeah.
going to
No,
get labeled as gay and not be able to date women.
there's something, I think it was Justin Bieber and like Jaden Smith or something I saw on Instagram the other day, and they like hugged each other, and the comments were like, "No way, two straight guys ever acting like that. They're hooking up, blah blah." And I'm
Oh my
like,
god.
I think Jaden like went up behind Justin and like gave him a hug or something from the back, and I believe this was at Coachella or something, so they were probably also like on something, which I'm just saying, like, that would be my guess, but maybe not. But yeah, it's not that weird to be like kind of touchy with someone, like when you're feeling good vibes at a show or something. And it was just, yeah, the comments like, oh, ever since like, and I don't know about all this Diddy stuff that's coming out, but people are like, ever since Diddy like got to them and blah, 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 or
Oh
like they're
my
so gay for each
god.
other, there's this. And I'm like, no, I mean, sometimes, yes, I would look at people and be like, they're probably gay, but whatever. But I don't know. There's a lot of times where I'm like, it's just two guys like being affectionate. Like that's okay too. So, and then
Mm.
people also like get mad if guys aren't like don't show affection or anything. It's like they're so stoic and don't talk about their feelings. But then that's a whole conversation on like masculinity and toxic masculinity, how it's fragile, like blah 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 blah. That's kind of just no one's ever going to be, all of society is never going to agree on anything. So anything anyone does can be critiqued pretty badly.
Yeah. You had mentioned that you just to kind of go to a next article, you had found a Reddit thread of all the quote
Yeah.
foreshadowing, but you said a lot of it was just like nothing, right?
Yeah, it was talking about how Dumbledore dresses, was a little bit more like flamboyant and like had stars and moons on his robes, but that goes for all wizards. So, but that's also if like in the movies they definitely change it and they give them muggle clothing. But throughout the books, like it's mentioned that how wizards always wear robes. And I think it's in the first book they talk about like how there's I don't know if you remember like the intro to the book is Vernon Dursley's going to work and to
Hmm.
him it's just a normal day and then he's talking about like oh there were three men or four men whatever like huddled like he's wearing colorful robes or something he seemed very excited about something like freaks but it's talked about how like wizards constantly wear robes so it wasn't like Dumbledore was an outlier there um, he was definitely like flamboyant or had like a flair to life which I can be like okay I guess I can kind of see that. Like that is more of like a gay type of thing. And again, I think of like Elton John or like really any gay kind of like pop star. But there's also a lot of straight pop stars who just kind of have that like flair, flamboyant personality, and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there was much foreshadowing for Dumbledore being gay. I do remember when that came out, the only thing I could think of back when I was 16 something, whenever it happened, was how he mentioned liking knitting or something. But I think, and that's not even gay. I think that was just because I liked knitting and was like probably insecure about it, thinking like, oh crap, like I already know this isn't like masculine to like knitting. And then when Dumbledore did it and was confirmed gay, was like, crap, no, that another gay person who likes knitting, like, how am I gonna look now? Because I wasn't out or anything. But again, that's not really like that doesn't mean anything if someone likes knitting.
That's so funny. I love the idea of like J.K. Rowling announcing Dumbledore is gay, and we're like, girl, we saw the knitting. We know.
Yeah, like obviously. Well, I think it was even just like he mentioned a knitting magazine that he was reading or something. Like it wasn't even anything like that, and it
And you're
was
like, gay.
yeah. I was like, wait, I like knitting magazines. Like, what's going on or something?
That's honestly the
So.
strongest argument I've heard in my lifetime for Dumbledore being gay.
Yeah. Well, but then, so let's think of like other characters, like McGonagall. She's straight, but I don't think they talk about her like sexual history or anything because why would they? It's not really relevant. Um,
Yeah, and then
I
there's that
guess
one part where
Hagrid they
she's reading a
do.
magazine about fixing toilets.
Yeah, so there's definitely. Well, I don't think they would have to fix toilets back then. She just, they're in that world, I guess. She just has her wand.
No, that's why it made
Um,
it so lesbian that she was doing it anyway.
yeah, she was genuinely just interested in how to fix a toilet. Um, since Pottermore, it has come out that McGonagall had a husband who died or something, and then I don't know if she got remarried or not. But anyway, like that's when the universe was all expanded upon.
Mm-mm-mm.
But yeah, I don't really know in the books. There's only a few adult characters who, if they're single, where it like really talks about their sexuality.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and or their love life, right? Like,
yeah, with Snape, it's like his was important, like very essential to the storyline. So it's spoken about. Um, Hagrid, it gives us like a little taste when he's interested in, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but the other like half giantess who's the head of Beauxbatons, the French school, Madam something. Do you know who I'm talking about?
no, that's a deep cut, man. You really know these adults and their love lives.
Well, clearly I don't if I can't remember her name. Madame Maxine, that's it.
Oh,
And there's like a tiny bit of like romance with her and Hagrid right there. But other than that, like Hagrid's not talking about attraction he had to someone in high school or things like that.
how he got his rocks
So
off. Yeah.
yeah, like it's not relevant to the story. Like the house elves, I don't even know if we learn how they like procreate
Procreate.
or anything. There's no sort of sexual references there, and even Dobby and Winky, like that does not seem like a romantic partnership at all. It's just like a friendship where he feels the need to take care of her. So
So what's going on
it's
there?
not
Dabby and
delved into.
Winky, what are you two up to? Uh,
Yeah, I don't even want to know. Maybe that'll be my next tattoo on my back. A nice
oh my God,
visual of Dobby and Winky hooking up.
stop.
What? They're cute.
I was gonna ask, is there a like a Gleek version for Harry Potter's? Like, what do you call Harry Potter fans?
Potterheads, I think would
Oh,
be the
okay.
the go-to.
You're such a
And when you
Potterhead.
said gleek, my first thought was when you salivate under your tongue and like shoot
Oh.
spit. That's called gleeking. And I was like, wait, where's he going with this? Did they mention that in the Harry Potter universe about gleeking or
Yeah,
something?
that's how the elves procreate. They gleek into each other.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. Like, huh? What's the punchline? Where's this leading
That's so
to?
funny. I want to read another article excerpt, and this
Yeah.
is because I think the other, as we've discussed a little bit, the other interesting relation to the LGBT community with the Harry Potter series is Rowling's trans or anti-trans views. Um, this is from Wikipedia, but I honestly love Wikipedia. Rowling's responses to proposed changes to Scottish gender recognition laws and her views on sex and gender have provoked controversy. Um, uh, Rowling's views on trans individuals were first noted in 2018 when she liked a tweet that described trans women as men in dresses. This garnered criticism from her fans who accused her of being transphobic. Her spokesperson told Pink News that Rowling had favorited the tweet by mistake. In December 2019, Rowling tweeted support from Maya Forstater, who lost her job at the Center for Global Development due to gender critical views, and is the subject of Forstater versus Central for Global Development Europe. In 2020, Rowling spoke out against a DevEx article for using the phrase people who menstruate instead of women. She stated that denying the reality of biological sex erases the experiences of women worldwide and eliminates the possibility of same sex attraction. Responding to criticism, she stated her view that sex is real and has lived consequences, while additionally writing, I respect every trans person's right to live in any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. Which sounds promising, but then it goes on. Rowling published an essay on her personal website in 2020 in which she expressed a number of concerns about what she called the new trans activism. Rowling characterizes the arguments that femaleness does not reside in the sexed body and assertions that biological women do not have common experiences as being misogynistic. She finds language calling females menstruators to be dehumanizing, and she believes that the trans activist movement seeks to erode women as a political class as well as a biological one. It goes on, but uh, okay, she did say, I believe the majority of trans identified people not only pose zero threats to others, but are vulnerable. Trans people need and deserve protection. I feel nothing but empathy and solidarity with trans women who have been abused by men. So it sounds like she tries to qualify her statements with like, but I'm not transphobic, but it doesn't really resonate with the things she's saying and it does sound like a lot of what she says comes from a place of misunderstanding.
Like, Claire, can you clarify? Do you mean like the audience is misunderstanding her, or
No,
like
no,
she's
no. I
misunderstanding what
think
it is
she's
to be trans?
misunderstanding like what the movement, what trans movements are about, right?
Yeah. Which I think
Actually, there's one that was. Let me see if I can find it. Uh, this is probably one of the most like, oh, this is just she doesn't understand this, right? She said she was concerned that girls were transitioning in order to escape sexism and that she was a survivor of domestic abuse and sexual assault, and stated that when you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. Which I think is just like really betrays a lack of understanding of what most trans people are going through and why they
yeah.
transition. I think it's such a sad and false theory that people transition so that they can be in better positions for sexual assault. I haven't heard any cases of that happening, and so many cases of
No,
trans
nor
people
have
who
I.
really are um, finding so much comfort, solace, freedom, in transitioning. So it is, yeah, it's sad to see an artist whose work I loved. I grew up with my dad reading me these books, right? I've always loved this world and this fantasy world, and I I don't even entirely disrespect the idea of someone who's famous for other reasons wanting to be an activist for their views. It's just a shame that I feel like these views are misguided, and it's sad.
Well, the thing is like this has been going on for years. If this was one statement that she made, and then was like, "Oh my God, I misspoke. I took the time to learn, like to teach myself, blah blah." I'd be like, "Okay." Like honestly, even if she did that now and was like, "You know what? I actually like met a trans person in real life," because I doubt she has. And like my views changed. Like from what I said in the past, like I was so ignorant, blah blah blah, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, respect." Like she shouldn't have done all that, but she made an effort to learn or something. But I think at this point, it's been years where she has intentionally not made an effort to learn because it just her viewpoints just to me at least just don't make sense. And I try to remind myself too. I don't know her level of education, if that's something you can look up, but I know she was like homeless when she was young. I do believe she was beaten by like her first husband. I don't know to which extent, but honestly, like that doesn't
Hmm.
really matter what the extent was if she was still abused or not. So I do wonder if it is coming from a place of like women need to be kept safe and like that's it, that's the wall that she has up, and like for some reason has blinders to everything else and won't look into it. And I'm not justifying her actions or her
Mm-mm-mm.
behavior towards it, but I'm like in her heart maybe she, I don't know, like just will not accept that trans women are women, and has had will not even allow herself to have like real exposure to it, which is still her fault if she won't do it. But I am curious, like, has she tried to learn anything about like trans people or not?
Yeah. Well, let's switch to lighter topics, although obviously
Yeah.
related. You did a lot of, you found an article about the new show that's coming out.
Yeah, so just the HBO show, and it was just like there's not much that I know about it, but just a quick teaser about how Dumbledore
Would you
is
like to
how
read us an
someone is
excerpt?
in talks to. Yeah, let me see how to close Zoom and get that. HBO's Harry Potter show is about to cast a huge role with one big problem. The role is Dumbledore, the most central figure to the series other than the trio of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And the actor that is near a deal to play him, according to Deadline, is none other than John Lithgow. Lithgow, I'm not actually quite sure how to pronounce his name. Um, it goes on to talk about people who he's played in the past. And the big issue with his casting, however, is it's no fault of his own, it's his age. So that was the big controversy. While Lithgow is still an excellent actor, he's 79 years old. And Dumbledore's supposed to be in his 90s. So, but I
Oh,
don't
so
think
he's too
that's,
young is the problem.
yeah, and I don't like, this is just like a clickbait article. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially if they want the series to go on as long as they want it to go on for, I think, 10 years.
Yeah, they're like, our first Dumbledore died halfway through the series. We want our second Dumbledore
Not
to do
even
the same.
halfway. He only did the first two movies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And
he was
then
switched
and
out
then
in
they
the
cast
third.
Gandalf, right?
Yeah, I mean, close enough.
That's so funny. They're like, whatever, Gandalf can just be in both of these.
It wasn't really Gandalf, just as a heads up,
Oh wait,
but
I thought it was the same actor that played Gandalf.
no, 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 no. Different
Oh,
guys, just like older white men with gray hair and long beards.
okay. I feel like someone told me that once, and so I'll just edit
It
this
just
out of the
stuck with
podcast.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, from the little I've read, it seems to be pretty tight-lipped so far on John Lithgow. Like, uh, they're not really saying much about it. Um,
I don't see him as Dumbledore. I mean, I don't know. The only person I see as Dumbledore is like this imaginary person in my head, I guess, and the one who played him in the first two Harry Potter movies. So no matter what with casting, there's going to be people who are like, that's the worst choice you could ever make. I don't see it at all. Like, there's not going to be any actor who captures everyone's imagination. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, so I'm curious, since J.K. Rowling saying Dumbledore is gay, has like, do you think this series is going to make him canonically gay and like actually explicitly mention it? And has there been any like in Pottermore or any other sort of Harry Potter literature or stuff that's come out that has canonized him as gay?
Not that I'm aware of. I have a Pottermore account, but I never like delved into it. It was just something I made when it first came out. Like, whoa, this is so cool. And
Oh,
then
what house
it
did you get
was
put
kind
in?
of
Me
Hufflepuff. So
too. It's
yeah,
embarrassing.
and I know. So actually, they let like I forget like 100 or 1,000 people in when they first made the site as like a test group. And I signed up and got two accounts because I signed up with two different emails, thinking like there's going to be so much competition. Let me like try to get it in case I don't get it. And both of my accounts got it. So I took the test the first time and I was sorted into Hufflepuff. And I was like, nope, like good thing I have a second account. Let me take it on this one instead. And there was different questions, and I still got Hufflepuff. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's my house. And now, like, I'm an out and proud Hufflepuff, so it's okay. But once I got into it, it was just kind of like computer games, and I've never been much of a gamer or anything, so then I didn't really delve into it. I have heard that she posts or used to post like a lot of cool kind of backstories on characters, and I would come across those, but it wasn't like a site that I would visit regularly.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I every test I've taken has given me Hufflepuff, and I took one test where you could get your house and your Patronus, and then my Patronus was a wild boar. I was like, I'm so
Nice.
done. I'm so over this. It was like
I
the
think mine
ugliest
was like a
little.
mink or something.
Oh
So
man. I do like to imagine that in the HBO show, like how you talked about, like, oh, who's those men in fruity robes on the street? And it's just like,
yeah. Why is
it's
that
just
guy
like,
always knitting?
but it's just gonna be like Lithgow and these other wizards just like voguing and death dropping and
Yeah.
like Voldemort's dead. Da, 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 da.
I so HBO is pretty like raunchy. Like I don't know if you've watched any HBO shows, but
Oh,
like
I
they're
have.
naked all the time. Yeah. So Harry Potter is definitely like it's about kids. So I don't know how much they'll delve into all that, but I do think, and I don't know what the writers are thinking or anything, but I wonder if it will have a lot more to do with adults' lives and their backstories because
Mm.
like I'm trying to think of how to verbalize this. Um, like it's just not going to be that interesting if it's three 11-year-old kids for like the whole first season, and then the second season is 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, or however they split it up.
Hmm.
But I do think to keep the show interesting that it will have a lot more adult backstories. That doesn't mean it needs to be like adult like rated R content or anything, but I think that showing the adults dynamic will be more entertaining than like three children's dynamic. But Stranger Things is really good. Like The Goonies was really good. There's things like that that are kind of timeless classics. So if they're not that I'm calling Stranger Things a timeless classic because it's still going on, but there is a way to make like children's interesting for adults to be watching. I guess. I don't know what direction it's going to go in. So
Yeah, I would love them to see them give us new material. I felt like the new Mean Girls movie was just really a lazy copy and paste of the first Mean Girls, and it didn't give me enough newness to really enjoy anything to
I
latch onto.
have not seen it.
Yeah. um, but so yeah, I would love to see. I'm very curious to see what they do here, and I hope they do a good job. Do we know? Just is J.K. Rowling involved in the project? Is she going to be profiting from the project?
I mean, I'm sure she would be profiting from it. I don't know. I see clickbait articles that I just don't think are true that have to do with her. And like, I don't use Facebook often, but well, sometimes I will. I get tired of doom scrolling Instagram or TikTok, and I'm like, okay, let's doom scroll on Facebook instead. And it'll be fake quotes, or it'll be like, I can't even think of an example, but it's just very clear clickbait. And it'll be like, J.K. Rowling says she will not be changing any race in the new HBO series because she does not believe in diversity. Like, if you agree. And I'm like, this is not true. Like, and even if that is her personal thought, she would never say that. She is, like I said, she's the definition of a TERF. She's very into like minority groups and speaking up for things. It's just trans people that she's like against.
Yeah.
But and then I read through the comments and people are like, I support this all the way. Like, tired of DEI, tired of this, tired of that. And I'm like, you guys are idiots. So,
Like if you agree is
uh,
so cringe. It's like,
yeah.
oh,
And,
this type of word.
it's these Facebook pages that probably just post memes and stuff and like are being paid for engagement. So I get it. They're just trolling basically and know that people will engage. But yeah, other than that, I don't know how much she's involved or not.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap up.
Woo.
Nicholas, what are your final thoughts? And I'll just kind of ask you about the Harry Potter universe as a
Yeah.
whole, the gayness of Dumbledore, where you see things going, just kind of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I still love Harry Potter. Like, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I'm actually going to Tokyo in a couple weeks, and I'm gonna go do a tour of the Harry Potter studio there. I don't know much about it because I didn't want to spoil anything before I go,
Hmm, hmm.
but I've heard it's bigger than the London studio tour, and I've been to the London one twice before. Um, I, yeah, I've gone to the theme parks in Orlando and in Los Angeles. I have multiple copies of the books. Like, I'm a pretty big Harry Potter fan. That was my like definitely my thing, my that I latched onto growing up was Harry Potter. So
That's
um
amazing, and I'm glad that they haven't just like canned the Harry Potter universe because of the controversy. I'm glad that they're still creating these things, and that fans like you are. You know, I'm a fan as well, but you are
I
a huge
I
fan.
definitely feel torn knowing that there's money, like that I'm spending my money on things because I am a big believer that like every dollar you spend is your vote, for whatever.
Hmm.
And I do feel kind of torn with that, but I hate to say it, but then like we couldn't spend our money on anything. If you look at what any owners of any grocery store or anything are spending their or putting their money towards, it's going to be ideas that you don't agree with. So yeah, I just have to out of sight, out of mind, and pretend I don't know that that money's going in her pocket if I want to buy a $10 cup of butterbeer or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's everything with capitalism, right? You have to go easy on
Yeah.
yourself, and heck, I still eat at Chick-fil-A sometimes. I don't even know where they are at anymore. I'd like to think it's more okay now that they don't support
I don't think
everything.
so. I think they still give like a lot of money towards like even I don't know. I mean, this could be anything. You go to any grocery store, and
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's for Chick-fil-A, I think it's the owner, but other places it's whoever's doing the person's taxes is donating a bunch of money to get write-offs to something, and then you can dig into an organization and find out they gave money to a country that has some being gay is illegal or something like that. And it's like, wow, you gave money to a corporation that's like funneling the money towards execution of gays in this country. It's like that's not I didn't know that. And that's not directly like what the owner's rights are. That's just his tax person, like giving him these cuts. I don't know if all
Yeah.
that made sense, but
Yeah, I think my final thoughts are I feel like I actually learned a lot looking into these articles. It I actually find myself being now more interested in the idea of Dumbledore being canonically gay, especially if they explore his history and his past. I think we have an opportunity, and the HBO show has a real opportunity here to kind of dig into that, like what Dumbledore's love life was like and how that impacts who he is as a person. That could be, it sounds like there's grounds for a really interesting narrative there. I would love to see that, and I agree with your thoughts on being able to kind of separate from the artist here. I feel like it's very fun to engage in Harry Potter content, and it's
yeah,
I think it's also important to know that like you might some of that money might end up in J.K. Rowling's pockets. She is campaigning for something she believes in, which I don't believe in, right? And I think that's harmful in its own way. But also, I think this money is supporting probably a lot of people and a lot of jobs, right? So there's a lot of good people that we also support when we engage in this Harry Potter world. And
yeah. And if it makes you feel any better, actually, all the main cast of Harry Potter has been like pretty vocal about how they don't agree with J.K. Rowling at all.
yeah,
So watching the movies and stuff, and not, I doubt they get residuals at this point. But actually, if it's on TV, they probably do. I don't know how it works with streaming now. But anyway, they don't believe the same things that
I
J.K.
love that
Rowling believes.
trio.
So
Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson,
yeah,
Ron.
even some of like the smaller characters, like just friends of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, have spoken out about trans rights, and they're pretty vocal about it. I think Ginny and maybe Luna Lovegood and a few of the other characters got together and like raise money for trans rights or things
Oh,
like that. So
that's so
they're
lovely.
they all seem to have kind of turned into these like activists, which is cool.
Also interesting. I don't know if we said this. Lithgow, who they've tapped to play Dumbledore, is not gay. Um,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Maybe it means they won't be gay in this film, or maybe they're like, screw it, who cares?
I think they will explore that more, but only I guess only time will tell when the series comes out.
Only time will tell. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me. You were the perfect person to talk about all this. I did not realize you were such a big Potterhead, and so I got to learn something new about
Now
you.
you know.
Yeah, I'll have to see your tattoos sometime.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't show the feet for free, so no, I'm joking. If you like look at my Instagram, I'm barefoot all the time. So
That wasn't a come on. I'm just actually interested in the tattoos. Let's be clear.
yeah, sure, sure, sure.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.